So this is my guide for making the iron helmet from the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. I made one last year for my son out of mostly e.v.a. foam, but he has grown since then and it no longer fits him. So I will be making another about 10% bigger, except this time I'll be filming the process. I know there's quite a few iron helmet videos on YouTube already, but none of them are any good in my opinion. So much so that when I made this helmet last year, I made it from scratch, mostly using this image as the main reference and ignoring all tutorials. This will be a two-part video and it'll cost around $50 from start to finish. So for this portion of the guide, you'll need tacks. Or pins would be better, but I can't find my pins anywhere, but tacks will work just fine and they're only $1. You'll also need a blade. I'm just using a Dollar Tree box cutter, which of course only costs $1, and this will be more than enough. Don't be fooled into thinking you need to dish out $5 to $10 for x-acto knives and replacement blades. Next, you'll need a sharpening stone. This is what's going to save you a lot of money on blades and allow you to reuse the cheap box cutter. This can also be obtained from Dollar Tree for only $1. After one or two major cuts, I simply take the blade and sharpen it like so. And then on the other side, about 5 passes per side will be enough, and it'll cut like any x-acto knife, and I know this because I've gone through many x-acto blades and this works a lot better for a lot less. Next, you'll want some contact cement. Here I've got the Elmer's rubber cement. This works okay, but the preferred brand is the Wellwood contact cement. They both cost around $5, but with the Wellwood you get about twice as much. I bought this one because I needed it for another project and my Wellwood tub dried out, and the local stores only had the larger, more expensive can, but I've tested this Elmer's rubber cement and it works almost as well and without the fumes. But if you can, get the other one, it holds a lot better, but like I said, this will be enough for this particular build. And you'll also need a heat gun. When I first started making foam pieces, I thought I'll just use a hairdryer, but that does not work. You need a heat gun. A hairdryer simply doesn't get hot enough to bend the foam, and this one is only $20 at Harbor Freight, so it's not that bad. But do be careful when using a heat gun because too much heat will shrink your foam and ruin your project. And lastly, you'll need e.v.a. foam. This project should only require 2 sheets, or up to 4 sheets if you mess up. These can cost as much as $5 per, or as little as $12 for a pack of 6. I got mine from Craigslist last year. I got 30 of them from a guy for about $30, but it's worth the price. I've tried other foams like yoga mat foam, which comes in a 2-foot by 6-foot roll and can be purchased for about $3 from Goodwill, but I don't suggest you go that route. Make sure you buy e.v.a. foam. So here's my base helmet template. These 2 pieces make up half of the helmet. You need to cut 2 of each of these. Simply print it out, preferably onto cardstock. I got this template from Odin over at Odin Makes on his Thor Ragnarok helmet video. I simply took his template and modified it to fit my needs, since it's hard to find a plain foam helmet template since everybody seems to want to charge you for it. So here I cut off the sides. His template had an earpiece here, but I didn't need all that. And this part had a little pointy bit, so I just cut that off to try to make it flat. I put the link of my modified helmet template in the description below. So first, I printed it out on a regular paper at a 91% scale and made sure it was big enough for my son. Then I printed it out again on cardstock and ended up with this. The template doesn't fit all on one sheet, so you have to print it out in segments and tape it together like I did here. And this makes the whole dome. Just pin it on the floor mat and trace it. Once like this, then flip it over to get the other side. So this is what it'll look like once you cut out all your pieces. As you can see, I labeled them left and right to avoid confusion. And these 2 are the same piece, just mirrored. And as you can see, I got some really smooth cuts out of this cheap blade. And always make sure you have all your reference marks. They're just meant to be drawn on, not cut. And then left goes with left and right goes with right. And you can just cold glue it together and force the foam into shape, but it'll leave some really ugly seams. So before you glue it, hit it with the heat gun and bend it. Put the heat gun on high and give the whole thing an equal distribution of heat for about 10 seconds per side. And at the moment you turn the heat off, immediately start rolling it on your knee. This way and this way. Okay, so now I've got all my pieces heated and curved as well as I could. Ideally, you'd want these to be curved more, but this will be enough. And now it's time to glue them. So first, I'm going to glue the insides together, then I'll come back and glue the 2 halves together like this. So now it's time to pull out the contact cement and apply a good coat on each side. Not too much, but you do want an even coat throughout. And now on the other piece. Then, if you try to glue them on immediately, it won't stick, it'll just slide because the cement is too wet. So you have to let it dry a little so it can get tacky and adhere to itself upon contact. So I like to fan the pieces to expedite the process. Then you're ready to bond your pieces, being sure to line up your reference marks. Worst case scenario, if you mess up, you can pull them apart and try again. You can also apply a bit of heat to soften the cement. So this side is pretty much done. As you can see, there's a bit of a raised edge here because I didn't give my pieces enough of a curve when I heated them up, but it's okay. A lot of this won't show in the final product, so I'm satisfied with how this turned out. So now to do the rest. And that's it. So because I'm working off an existing template, it has a little peak here I don't need, and these two little peaks here in the back, but it won't matter because this will all be covered by the faceplate. I just need the base helmet to build everything off of. Now at this point, be sure to do a test fit, because if it doesn't fit, you have to start all over. So here's the helmet we just made. But first, let's see how the old one fits. So the old one is super snug and too small. So now to test the new one. And it's a little on the big side, but that's okay. And now we can move on with the helmet. So now that we've settled on the base, the next piece to work on is this piece right here, the faceplate or eye guard. And the way I made it, it's actually one solid piece going from here to here. And this is still one solid piece going all the way to the back and wrapping all the way to the front again. And the seam is right here in the middle, which you can't see because it's covered by this piece here in the middle. I don't know if you can see, but here you might be able to see just a little bit of a seam right there. So this faceplate is one piece that unrolls this way. I went ahead and made a template for the faceplate and the piece under it that covers the back of the neck. I've put the link in the description below along with the base helmet template. Be sure to print it out on regular paper first. It'll probably take 4 sheets of paper to fit both pieces. Make sure to get the right scaling before committing to printing out onto cardstock. If you need help with scaling, try making a foam ruler. A foam ruler will help you transfer your template to foam more accurately, because paper templates don't warp and shrink like the foam does when made into certain shapes like circles or domes, and your pieces might come out too small and force you to start all over. Once you've decided on your correct scaling and you've got your template cut out and taped together on cardstock, you can begin to transfer it over to foam. Simply pin it to an e.v.a. foam mat and trace it around like we did with the base helmet and cut it out, remembering to sharpen your blade between cuts to avoid tearing. Once you've cut those pieces out of foam, we can go ahead and attach them to the helmet like so, and move on to the next part. But first, I need to add on these little details because I can't do it later. These little lines right here go all the way around the edge of the faceplate. So first, I'm going to draw them on with a pencil and a ruler, and they are 1/2 centimeter from the edge, and it goes all the way around the edge of both pieces, as you can see. Except for here, the line doesn't go all the way through. It goes here and then down, and then the other one goes up and that way. So I'm going to go ahead and draw these lines on the foam pattern. So here I'm just making a series of dots 1/2 centimeter from the edge and using a ruler to connect these dots, making a line around the perimeter. Now I'm just going to make a super shallow cut with a blade and hit it with the heat gun. You don't need to make super deep cuts. Just a light 1 to 2 millimeter cut will be enough, and the heat gun will open it up. So I'm done with the shallow cuts, and it's hard to see a difference because it's so shallow, but once you heat it up, you'll see a huge difference. I'm going to set the heat on high and give it a nice even heat for about 2 seconds all over. Okay, and this is what it should look like once it's split. As you can see, it makes a huge difference, and you don't have to use a Dremel. And now we can glue them together. So the way I'll glue it is I'll place this down and place the helmet on top and make sure that this part meets up with the forehead seam. And also I have to make sure that this ridge stays under. Not like this, but more like this. So almost flush with the front edge. And then do the same thing to the other side, even if I have to pull it tight over. It should look something like that. Just try to get it even all over, because one side might be higher than the other and you won't know as you're gluing it on. Luckily, contact cement gives you a little bit of room for error, and you can always pull it off in case you make a mistake, as long as you do it before it dries completely. And then the next part. This piece, if you notice, this part isn't coming straight down. It's kind of angled out. And the way I did it is I made it flush here, but it's separated here. And it makes it staggered and not just going straight down. So now to glue it all together. And here it is. Stay tuned for part 2, where I'll show you how to make this piece, the horns, the attachment for the horns, the studs, the scratch detail, and paint. Thank you for watching.